So, we finally got a new Predator movie coming out. We had an Alien movie last year, which I didn't like at all. I just thought it was terrible. Had few good moments to it, but the ending was just downright insulting. But maybe this Predator movie will be awesome. It's being directed and written by Shane Black, and I've liked a lot of his work beforehand. But before we actually get to the Predator, I think it's only fair that I revisit the original Predator series. And there's no better way to start this next series of retro reviews than with 1987's Predator, which is directed by John McTiernan and stars Arnold Schwarzenegger. The movie follows a group of mercenaries led by Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers as they head into Central America to try to take care of a hostage situation, and they manage to do it pretty quickly, but as they're trying to leave and head back to base, they're soon being stalked by this mysterious force in the jungle. Some of the team members get killed off pretty quickly, and it's soon revealed that there's this extraterrestrial hunter after them that pretty much kills humans for sport. And the Predator, as it's known as, doesn't just kill any human. No, it goes out and finds the meanest, toughest people that it can find because, hey, it's all for sport, and trying to take out the toughest guys imaginable just makes it even more fun. So basically, the group of mercenaries have to survive and try to get out of the jungle alive before they all become victim to the Predator. So I reviewed John McTiernan's Die Hard last year, which is a fantastic action movie, and Predator is the movie that he made right before he did Die Hard. And this might sound unpopular, but I actually love Predator more than I do Die Hard. And what I really love about this movie is how it gets better as it goes along. Because at first glance, you look at Predator and go, okay, it's an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. I mean, he doesn't have the best acting chops, but he can deliver entertaining action movies. So maybe it could be like Commando, where it's just goofy action, not all that great, but you're still having a lot of fun with it. And that's honestly how the first act of this movie is. It follows a very basic military commando type role, but it's actually more well directed than Commando was, because John McTiernan does a lot of unique tricks with the camera, and he really does a good job of showing how the team coordinates with each other, and just the camaraderie between all the team members is fantastic. And you have a lot of great lines from all the characters. I mean, especially Schwarzenegger. He is a one-liner machine. And sometimes the line itself is just kind of okay, but the way Schwarzenegger delivers it is just, it's just a lot of fun. Dylan, you son of a bitch. What's the matter? The CIA got you pushing too many pencils? So it's lines like that, and then you also have lines like, this stuff will make you a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus. Just like me. Which that line comes from Jesse Ventura. You got a bunch of other quotable lines like, I ain't got time to bleed, if it bleeds we can kill it. But again, you're watching this and you go, okay, it's a Schwarzenegger action movie, it's expected. And the first big action scene in the movie where all the commandos raid the village, you could actually tell it's not being directed by John McTiernan. It was directed by the second unit team, because it feels very much like Rambo First Blood Part 2 or Commando, where it's a lot of static camera movement, generic explosions. I mean, it's fun, but this is not the best way to kind of win over people that are just kind of on Schwarzenegger. And also, one thing I noticed when watching the movie is that when Schwarzenegger's character is first introduced, he's like a serious army guy, doesn't really crack a bunch of jokes, but during this big action scene, he'll throw a machete at some guy and pins him to the wall, and Schwarzenegger says, stick around, which doesn't really sound appropriate for his character, Dutch. I'm actually going to start calling Schwarzenegger's character Dutch, because that's his character's name. So it was just kind of weird. Again, it's a fun action scene, but it just feels a bit generic. And then we get into the second act of the movie, when the Predator actually starts popping in and starts killing off these characters one after another. That's when John McTiernan's direction comes back into play, and it plays very much like Alien, where you have all these great characters, you like them all, and it's kind of a shocker when a lot of them get killed because you don't know who's gonna die. I mean, Schwarzenegger, he's too big of a star for them to actually kill, but with everyone else, you're just like, oh, they killed him? No, I like that guy. And I also love how we don't get to see the Predator that often in the second act. It very much is like with Jaws, how you rarely saw the shark until the last half of the movie, except with Jaws, that was a happy accident where the shark didn't work all the time. In this movie, it's done intentionally. And you just get very, very tiny glimpses of the Predator. The most you see of it is when it's cloaked, but you don't really get a good look at it until we get to the end of the second act. And it also plays into Alien, where it's kind of horrifying and you fear for these guys. This group of really tough, manly commandos are suddenly outmatched by one single enemy that they can't see. And there's one character in particular, Billy, who's super tough. He knows his way around. He's really good at knowing his surroundings. He's the first guy that really starts to get suspicious about them being stalked. And there's one line that Dutch utters that really sums up the entire situation. What's got Billy so spooked? So the second act is just nothing but thrilling and intense, and the entire movie is elevated by Alan Silvestri's fantastic score. Next to Back to the Future, this is probably my favorite Alan Silvestri score because it's just so good. It's so well done. The Predator theme is just all kinds of awesome. So this is the point where the movie starts to go from good to great. But then we get into the third act of the movie, and this is the point where the movie goes from being great to brilliant. The final act in this movie is just nothing but Dutch and the Predator trying to use stealth and ingenuity to outsmart one another. And it's not a big shoot-'em-up fest like the first two acts were. It's very quiet, very thrilling, very atmospheric, and there's hardly any dialogue. It's very similar to the final act in Alien, where it's just nothing but Ripley and the Xenomorph. And what makes it really intense is that this is Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's like the head honcho action star of the 1980s. Like, he's not scared of anything, nothing can beat him. So now we have this movie where he's not fully loaded with guns. He has to use his smarts, just like John McClane in Die Hard, to outsmart the only enemy that could actually beat and kill Arnold Schwarzenegger in a movie. And it's just nothing but brilliance all around. I just love the third act of the movie so much. Now let's actually talk about the Predator itself, and the history about how this creature came to be is actually pretty fascinating, because there was an original concept for the creature, and it just looked downright goofy, and it didn't help that it was being played by Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was just this weird pink suit. It looked downright goofy, not at all threatening, and all I could think of is the Skeeksis from The Dark Crystal. I hope I pronounced that right, because that's a weird pronunciation of a creature. But anyway, they scrapped this design altogether. They brought in Stan Winston, who at the time was most well known for doing The Terminator and Aliens with James Cameron. So he came in to redesign the Predator, and thus history is made. When you first see the Predator, it's a really badass design, because it has this really cool mask, it has dreadlocks, it has a shoulder cannon, it sees everything through heat vision, which is actually one of the tactics that Schwarzenegger uses against him in the third act, where he pretty much covers himself in mud. And when the Predator actually corners Dutch and catches him, rather than just killing him right then and there, he admires Dutch for using the environment to his advantage and hiding from his heat vision. So he ditches the shoulder cannon, takes off the mask to reveal the fact that he's one ugly motherfucker, as Dutch calls him. And this is a design that actually freaked me out the very first time I saw it, because the whole time you're looking at the Predator with the mask on, because the mask and a lot of other interpretations of the Predator mask is so iconic, but when you actually take off the mask, it's a really creepy design. And the final battle, where it's just a punch out between Dutch and the Predator, is so thrilling. And it's kind of horrifying in a way. This might actually be a legit horror movie for Schwarzenegger to be in. And he's actually really good in the role. He reacts to things in a very subtle way. He's smart, he's charismatic, and he's afraid, because when you watch a bunch of other action movies with Schwarzenegger in them, he's never really scared at all. This time he is scared out of his mind, because he is up against something that, in theory, he can't defeat. But of course he does defeat the Predator in the end, because we need to have a happy ending. And God, I love this movie so much. And I also mentioned a bunch of other names that work really well together, like Carl Weathers, who's more famous for being Apollo Creed, Jesse Ventura, and then you also have Shane Black, who not only is one of the mercenaries, but he was also an uncredited script doctor, basically doing punch-up work, making some of the camaraderie work better. And this is the reason why I have full faith in the Predator, because he's had experience with this franchise beforehand. I think he's an excellent writer. So if there's anybody that can make the best Predator movie since the original, I trust Shane Black completely. Now, I don't think it's going to be as good as this movie, because this movie right here is a masterpiece. But like I said, it has the best shot of being the best since this one. But getting back to John McTiernan's Predator, I don't know if I have anything else to say about this movie. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's well written, the acting's great, the action's exciting, the thrills are real, the design of the Predator is so imaginative and creepy, and the third act is just brilliant all around. This really is a movie that gets better the more it goes on, because in the first act you're thinking, okay, it's good but not great. Then you get to the second act, okay, it's worth seeing in your lifetime, it's really good. Then, once the movie ends with that explosive and thrilling third act, you just have to say, get off your ass and go see it right now. It is really one of the best action movies out there. And, like I said, I like it better than Die Hard. I adore Predator. I cannot get enough of it. If you've not seen it, please go watch it now. It is that great of a film. And that's my review for John McTiernan's Predator. Next week, we're going to dive right into the next movie in the series, Predator 2, which I have never seen. So this will be an interesting experience watching Predator 2 for the first time. So now I want to know what you guys have to say. What are your thoughts on Predator? Do you love it? Do you just like it? What do you prefer, Predator or Die Hard? Let me know in the comments down below. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.